masses affect the masses. There's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I am your host on this show, on this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspectives, Spiritual Truths. Now, you know me. I'm all about provoking thought. I'm about bringing awareness, and I am about pointing people towards intervention. Now, visually, you can see that this looks a little different because what you see is very patriotic around us. Why do I have a patriotic? Why is there a flag? Why is there a presidential seal? Because these things are relevant to what is going on in the constitutional republic of the United States of America. So this month of July, this is a patriotic month. We are celebrating in our great nation. And with Independence Day, some people call it the 4th of July, we are celebrating the Declaration of Independence. What does independence, what does freedom mean now? We're getting ready to dive in, and I've got a lot to cover. Put your seatbelt on because we're going somewhere, and it's expecting us when we get there because we're going to dive into some things that have been slanted, twisted, and if things have been slanted and twisted, do you think that we need to unfold it? We need to unpack it, and we, as citizens of this great nation, as we celebrate in this month of July, that we need to know the truth. So, why do we celebrate in July? What are we talking about Independence Day in the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America? Why do we celebrate? We celebrate the Declaration of Independence for there are reasons. Now, first of all, you know me, I do a lot of research, and I had so much thought provoked. And when we're talking about the United States of America, Britain had a history of colonization, Great Britain. And why did they colonize? Why did they have this history of colonization that ended up coming over on this soil? Thank God for the Native Americans that were already here. That's an entirely other podcast. We're talking about separate somewhat from that, in that the history of Independence Day. Independence in terms of how did we even get the name the United States of America? Britain had a history of colonization. Why did they do it? It was all about trading. It was about jobs, which equates to money that comes from workers. And this colonization had gotten to the point where there were 13 different colonies that had developed to growing to a population of about 2.5 million people. Now, another main reason that people were coming here, and they were over there, but they were like, we want to come over here. We want to come to to be a part of these 13 colonies, is that there was religious freedom. Religious freedom was very important to people. So these 13 colonies that ended up being called the United States of America, it represented core beliefs. When you're talking about religion, when you're talking about a development of people that is continually growing, we're talking about core beliefs that end up developing. So the very makeup of our identity as citizens became the making of these United States. So Thomas Jefferson, who was one of our presidents early on, he was the author of the Declaration of Independence. He declared that we wanted to be independent. Independent of what? of the rule that was coming from the King of Great Britain. Although we were free. So we're talking about America. What are we celebrating? What are we celebrating in this nation? Many citizens here in our nation, they're very passionate, very passionate about patriotism. And some could care less. Some deeply love America, and some are like, I can't stand it here. And for the ones that say that, my thing is, well, there are planes flying out every day. They're flying out every day. And if you don't like America, we got a lot going on. And see, this is why I'm talking about some of the things that we're going to dive into today. What are we celebrating? America, what are we celebrating? So it's very important to listen to these words of the Declaration of Independence. This is important. What did it say? Why are we celebrating this? It says, I'm going to read it. I don't want to miss a part of it. I haven't memorized this. So listen to this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. You hear that? The consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. Have we gotten away from that? It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So, along with this effort to become independent from the king, those folk over there in Great Britain, Thomas Jefferson, with the Declaration of Independence, so I learned, he came up with 27 grievances that were in the Declaration of Independence. He's saying, look, here's what we got a problem with, King. And this is why we want to be independent. Our numbers have grown. We started these 13 colonies, but we over here, we working hard, and our numbers have grown to 2.5 million people over here on this soil across the water. So there were 27 grievances. I'm going to highlight a couple of them. He said one of the grievances that the king has refused his assents to law to the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Also, one of the grievances, he has refused, the king, the grand poobah, the one in charge, he's refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those peoples would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. So it's 27 of them, and it just goes on. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. 27 of them is going on. Listen to this one, number 17 of these grievances. We had a grievance against the king who was still operating who was operating in tyranny on these 13 colonies for imposing taxes on us without our consent. Oh, wow. The Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. Declaration of Independence. here in the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. So there were 27 grievances. This was fascinating to me as I was digging into this. All right. Well, what are we celebrating? What are we celebrating? There were 5 very important grievances. Listen to this. This is really important when you see what's going on now. The 5 important grievances that stood out, that specifically blamed King George III. 1, British soldiers were in colonies without permission. Who's over here now without permission? Wreaking havoc. The other main grievance, quartering British troops were in the colonies. They set up camp. Not punishing these troops when they harm colonists. ... Today. Cutting off the colonists' trade with the rest of the world, controlling, manipulating markets. Taxing the colonists without their permission. Hello? We're talking about the original intent for us getting free for this Declaration of Independence. So, you see this backdrop of why we are celebrating? So they declared independence. So in 1776, they were like, we're done. And the Declaration of Independence, which is why we celebrate the 4th of July, why we have all this celebration going on in July, is all about what I just named. And that's the framework. Okay. So our country is not that old. So you see, when you look and see how long how old countries are across the water. All right. So in 1776, we had all this going on. So we were like, we don't want to have anything to do. So the Revolutionary War started. Hence, we got our first president, George Washington. Now, we won the war. There was a taxation without representation. Do we have any kind of taxation going on now that's totally out of control? And how much representation do we really have? Are we at their whim? How far have we come as a nation from what we started off being and what we intended to be? The purpose for coming here, the freedom of religion, and now what they're trying to do there's an antichrist spirit going on in this nation. They don't come against other religions. Look at what's going on with these parades and all this. I was looking at here recently, and at the parade, just an evangelist just standing there, just speaking the word of God, and the people with a certain agenda and a certain persuasion, they took that Bible and ripped it. They ripped it. Would they do that to the Quran? The Muslims have a right to have their book, and do we have a right to have ours? How far have we come as a nation? So what are we celebrating? Yeah, what are we celebrating here? So, stick with me. We're talking about the United States of America, the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. We have a flag now. It has stripes on it. It has stars on it. It represents the colonies. It represents the states. We have a presidential seal. The person that sits in that White House is supposed to be working for we, the people. Yeah, we, the people. So we have a flag. We have a country. And we have a national anthem that goes along with us celebrating. And so at given times, we would stand together and we'd look at that flag and we would say and sing together, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched was so gallantly streaming. This was in the war. And the rockets reclaim the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The Star-Spangled Banner. That flag represents blood that was shed for religious freedom, for people that said, you know what, we're not going to operate under your tyranny anymore. They died, they bled, they fought to be able to have freedom here. This is an imperfect place, but I'm going to tell you right now, what's going on in this place right now, the target that they put on our babies' backs, who's going to stand up? Who's going to stand up? So, in light of this flag and this seal, and who's supposed to represent we the people, and the Congress thereof, and the Republic thereof, this notion came up. In the month of June, we celebrated a new holiday, Juneteenth. What was that all about? There were suggestions from people that said that we needed to replace Independence Day in the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. We needed to replace it with Juneteenth. That's really the real Independence Day. You got people, they don't even know what Juneteenth meant. I didn't for a while. So let's look at that in the context of this whole nation, in the context of the whole nation. Juneteenth, I found myself, I was not a whole lot excited about it because of me knowing history that's accurately told. What are we celebrating? What are we all supposed to do? Yeah, Juneteenth, everybody. And somebody said, why are you not excited? I said, because I know parts of history that they won't even talk about. They said, well, it represents the institution of slavery stopping. It's gone. Oh, really? So I found myself provoked to a lot of thought about Juneteenth. And what are we celebrating in this nation? Political agendas have mastered keeping history that's accurately told from us. Our history books are full of lies. They have kept things from us on purpose. There has been a relentless effort to twist history. Why? The day that was celebrated as Juneteenth, it happened subsequent to the U.S. Army, which was technically later known as the Grand Army of the Republic, arriving in Galveston, Texas. On June 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger arrived to enforce the end of slavery at that time. Now, at that time, slaves had been advised that the Civil War was over. It's over, baby. Why? From 1861 to 1865, the Civil War was fought. It was all about slavery. And people said, no, it was about states' rights. Well, your states' rights to keep black people enslaved, free labor. Who built the White House? Who built the Capitol? Those things were built on the backs of slaves. I'm not saying white people didn't help, but a lot of this stuff was built on the backs of slaves. That's just American history. Welcome to America. So the slaves were told, y'all are free. Y'all are free. Free from what? I say we because I'm an American, ADOS. I'm an American descendant of slaves. What were we free from? The Confederate States of America. Essentially, the slaves in Texas had not been informed that they had been emancipated in 1863. 1863. So for 2 more years, they were providing free labor in Texas. So what's the translation? They were still working, but who perpetrated that political lie upon them? There's no freedom. It was done by the Democratic Party. That's history that's accurately told. So the Republican military made their way down to Texas to let them know y'all are free. And actually you were free in the 2 previous years. So it's important to know history that's accurately told because the Confederate States of America was comprised of the Democratic Party. Let's fast forward to today. The Democratic Party is relentless in their efforts to hide the true history of their platform of this nation. And as the whole picture develops, and we're looking at Juneteenth, we're celebrating, okay? So did they create Juneteenth? Yeah, we gotta all celebrate Juneteenth. Did they create it? What did they create from a historical perspective? The history of the Democratic Party, has it been one that was evil and racist? In actuality, they are the ones who created the Confederate States of America, who attacked the Union. Over 700,000 total Americans died on our soil. Why? The Confederates died as a result of their relentless efforts to protect what they saw as their states' rights. States' right to what? To have black people as their property. The Republican-led U.S. Army, what are we celebrating? What are we celebrating? The Republican-led U.S. Army defeated the Democratic Party in their policies, which led to the freeing of the slaves. And it would be one thing if it ended there. That's what I'm saying. What are we celebrating? It'd be one thing if it ended, but it didn't. You know why it didn't end June 19th? Because when slaves were set free and the Civil War ended in 1865 and the Republican Party opened up their arms and allowed the participation of black men in the political process, that was the Republican Party. And a lot of those men went on to become famous congressmen. Who is Robert Smalls? Who is Blanche Bruce? Who is Joseph Rainey? Who is John Lynch? Who is Josiah Walls? Robert Smalls was so brilliant in the speech that he gave in the Congress. This is what they said. There's no way that a black man wrote a speech like that. That's just what they said. These guys were brilliant and they were former slaves and they were actively involved in helping to put in place 24 civil rights bills, which all this expansion of these 4 million people who used to be slaves, we were now free and prospering, and the Democratic Party and the folk in the South went crazy. They said, no way. So what they do, they formed the KKK in 1866, lynched black men and white men that helped those black men, and said, if you do not renounce your ties to the Republican Party, you will be flogged and lynched. What are we celebrating? 1776, you know what happened? After that, they got control of Congress again. The Democratic Party, yep. In the 1870s, after the Civil War ended, all these hundreds of thousands of Americans had died. They got control of Congress again and put us right back in slavery for about 90 years. I lived through that. What are we celebrating? I love America. I love America. But we got to have the history that's accurately told. So we were put back into slavery. What are we celebrating? I mean, well, the Independence Day, the institution of slavery ended when? In 1964 and 1965 when we couldn't vote? When? So we were put back into slavery for about 90 years. I went through that. It was vicious. It was hellish. It was horrible. There were black people being lynched in America up until the 1970s. I remember it. So what were they doing when they gave us Juneteenth? Were they throwing us a bone? Were they? Come on. What was it? Y'all got free. When? When did we get free? Are we free now? Look at what's going on now. Look at those 27 grievances. What grievances are going on now that we just supposed to go, well, you know, that's just how it is. When the 14th and 15th Amendment were passed, not one single Democrat voted for it. Frederick Douglass, he was a trailblazer. Booker T. Washington. The list is endless regarding people that worked. The Rosenwald schools were started. Let's put that picture up of the Rosenwald schools. Julius Rosenwald. It was against the law to teach black people how to read, but the Rosenwald schools were started. It was like, you have to teach them how to read. You have to give them constitutional rights. You see right there, there were over 5,000 schools that were built basically in the South, 5,357 buildings. Julius Rosenwald, look at that. Those are the kind of buildings that were built. Why? So we could legally learn to read. Look at the next picture. Look at that school. That reminds me of what my mom, who's 99 years old, she described that. Let's look at the next picture. Look at the next visual. That's a map in our nation. Oh, look at all those little dots. That's where Rosenwald schools were built. Booker T. Washington worked with Julius Rosenwald to build those schools. And do you know what? The Rosenwald schools, they were often the first schools in black communities and help improve education across the South. What are we celebrating? And you know what happened? The Rosenwald schools were stopped in their tracks in 1954 when the Supreme Court put in place the ruling of segregation in education was unconstitutional, and those schools became obsolete. Once they were the pride of their communities. Now they are abandoned and demolished, and there's an effort going on to be able to resurrect them and even have them online. So what happened? What are we celebrating? Johnson put in the Great Society, LBJ. The Great Society, bottom line, it used to be 82% of homes, black homes, had a male and a female in. They put the welfare system in place. You couldn't get a welfare check if there was a man in the home. Now 77% of black babies are born to single moms. We went from 82% intact family. Now 77% of black babies are born in single homes with single moms. They just are, God bless them. What are we celebrating? What are we celebrating? Let me tell you what. If Jim Crow was over and we're free, why would Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters say that Republicans should be kept from gas stations, department stores, and restaurants in 2018? Based upon who they chose to support politically? Why does the Congressional Black Caucus not even allow a conservative black politician to be part of their group? Black Republicans have literally been blocked from joining. What am I saying? I have a reason to celebrate, but I'm telling you what, I need political leaders that are going to step up to the plate and stop lying to us. Ones that have backbone, ones that really love this country, ones that will stop pandering to these agendas that are not even protecting our children. As I sang that song, I mean that song when I sing that song, because I'm a citizen of the constitutional Republic of the United States of America. And quite frankly, we're tired of an agenda being pushed down our throat where citizens are not being honored. Our constitutional rights are being violated. Our freedom of religion, where a man can't even stand on a corner who's an evangelist, can't even stand and preach without someone coming ripping their Bible, and children are being forced to do certain things. Let me tell you what, we're in a political season. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. In 2024, this symbolic right here, you see this seal right here, and you see this flag right here, you will be seeing it on my platform more often. It is a sign of things to come, because we have a nation to save. The constitutional republic of the United States of America is hanging in the balance. Who's going to step up and fight for these kids? There was a time we had 9,000 opportunity zones. We had the First Step Act, second chance hiring, more money for HBCUs than ever. It's all gone. What do we focus on now? We're going to go from destruction to dignity, but we got to get involved. We got to get involved with who's here, and we got to get involved with who's running this nation. Get up off yourself, off your seat, and get involved. What are we celebrating? Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
Education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation. A new nation.